In the summer of 2006, the colonial streets of Oaxaca were not filled with music and festivals, but with barricades, smoke, and the chants of thousands demanding justice. In the summer of 2006, the quiet colonial city of Oaxaca, nestled in the mountains of southern Mexico, became the stage of one of the most powerful grassroots uprisings in modern Mexican history. What began as a routine teachers' strike soon transformed into a mass rebellion that challenged not only the state governor but also the entire political system. The spark, a teachers' protest every year. Teachers from Section 22 of the National Union of Teachers SNATE went on strike, demanding better wages, classroom supplies, and resources for impoverished rural schools in Oaxaca. On May 22, 2006, thousands of teachers set up their encampment in the city's main square, a colorful plaza usually filled with music, markets, and tourists. For weeks, tents, banners, and makeshift kitchens filled the square. Parents supported the teachers, students joined marches, and indigenous communities sent food to the encampment. The strike was peaceful, but their demands went unanswered by the state governor, Ulises Ruiz Ortiz, a member of the PRI Institutional Revolutionary Party, long accused of corruption and authoritarianism. The attempted crackdown at dawn on June 14, 2006, everything changed. As the city slept, Ruiz ordered thousands of state police to move into the helicopters circled above, dropping tear gas canisters. Riot police stormed through the camp, burning teachers' tents, destroying food supplies, and brutally beating men and women. The streets filled with choking smoke. Children screamed as their parents tried to shield them, but the teachers did not flee. Armed with nothing but sticks, stones, and determination, they regrouped and fought back. Residents poured from their homes, banging pots and pans in defiance. The clashes raged for hours. But by noon the police had been forced to retreat. The people had reclaimed the square. This act of resistance ignited something much larger than a labor strike. Birth of APPO, a People's Assembly, just 3 days later. On June 17th, activists, unions, neighborhood groups, students, and indigenous organizations formed the Asamblea Popular de los Pueblos de Oaxaca, APPO, the Popular Assembly of the Peoples of Oaxaca. APPO declared itself the true voice of the people, demanding the resignation of Governor Ruiz, whom they accused of repression, electoral fraud, and enriching himself while Oaxaca's people lived in poverty. The city quickly transformed. Government buildings were occupied. Barricades made of buses, tires, and sandbags rose on nearly every street. Radio stations were taken over, broadcasting revolutionary songs, urgent calls, and messages of solidarity. Community patrols, known as topiles, kept order at the barricades. For months, Oaxaca City became a laboratory of direct democracy. Assemblies were held in plazas. Committees handled everything from food distribution to security. Even cultural life was reimagined. APPO organized an alternative Guelaguetza, a traditional Oaxacan festival, to replace the official government-sponsored version. It was not just a protest anymore, it was an experiment in self-governance, escalation, barricades, and resistance. By August, the conflict had spread across the state. APPO supporters controlled entire neighborhoods, and at night the streets glowed with the fires of hundreds of barricades. But with this defiance came violence. Armed paramilitary groups, often linked to local authorities, began to attack barricades and community radio stations. Gunshots echoed in the night, and several APPO members were killed in these assaults. The most powerful weapon of APPO, however, remained its unity. Massive marches, some drawing up to 400,000 people, flooded Oaxaca's streets, the largest in the state's history. Chants of "Ya, Ya, Ulises, Ya, he has fallen, Ulises has fallen," filled the air. October, the federal army moves in. Governor Ruiz, refusing to step down, appealed to the federal government for help. On October 27, 2006, tragedy struck. During clashes near a barricade, Brad Will, a U.S. journalist documenting the uprising, was shot and killed along with 2 Oaxacan protesters, Emilio Alonso and Esteban. Their deaths drew international attention, putting Oaxaca's struggle in global headlines. 2 days later, on October 29th, thousands of heavily armed Federal Preventive Police (PFP) entered Oaxaca. Helicopters hovered above. Armored vehicles rolled down colonial streets. Police stormed barricades with water cannons, tear gas, and rubber bullets. APPO retreated to the university campus, where Radio Universidad became their last voice. From there, students and activists broadcast pleas for solidarity as federal forces tightened control. The once celebrated, filled with life and color, was now occupied by riot shields and police camps. November, the siege of Oaxaca. Despite repression, APPO continued to organize. On November 5th, tens of thousands marched again, demanding the federal forces leave. Barricades were rebuilt nightly, only to be torn down again in violent confrontations. By late November, the federal police escalated arrests. Raids targeted leaders, many of whom were detained and sent to prisons outside Oaxaca. Protesters were beaten, some disappeared, and human rights groups reported cases of torture. The end of the commune. In December 2006, after 7 months of struggle, APPO's presence on the streets began to fade under relentless state repression. Hundreds had been arrested, dozens killed, and thousands traumatized. Schools that had been closed for half the year slowly reopened. APPO officially reorganized itself into the State Council of the Popular Assembly of the Peoples of Oaxaca, but the uprising had lost its momentum. Governor Ulises Ruiz remained in power until 2010, though his legitimacy was shattered. Legacy of the uprising. The Oaxacan Uprising of 2006 was not merely a protest. It was a bold attempt to imagine a different society, built on assembly, solidarity, and indigenous traditions of communal life. For months, ordinary citizens, teachers, farmers, women, students, workers took control of their city and ran it collectively. Though eventually crushed by state power, their experiment inspired movements across Mexico and beyond. The legacy lives on in the stories of those who resisted, in murals painted on Oaxaca's walls, and in the memory of a time when the people dared to govern themselves.